Courage the Cowardly Dog isn't a dog. Yeah, in a series all about the strange monsters that go bump in the night in the middle of nowhere, the monster we see the most of? This adorable doggo. And what he really is will melt your mind. Today's theory was brought to you by Squarespace, but more about that in a bit. Hello internets, welcome to Film Theory, the show that really wants you to return the slab. Like, please, the subscribe button would really appreciate it. Plus it would, kind of lift the curse, so, that'd be good. So I've been thinking a lot about why I love analog horror recently. I mean, who doesn't enjoy getting the poop spooked out of them? But tracking it back, I think I can thank one very specific cartoon for this love, and also for fueling some of my earliest nightmares. And that, my friends, is Courage the Cowardly Dog. If you don't know, this was a Cartoon Network series about a cowardly dog, ironically named Courage. He lived on a rural farm in the middle of nowhere with his elderly humans, Eustace and Muriel, as the family are bombarded with horrific creatures and terrible frights, all of which Courage would have to step up and fight off to protect his humans, who would usually remain none the wiser. This series had a huge impact on me growing up. Legit, I remember going over to my friend's house in my neighborhood growing up, and we would hang out and watch TV in his basement. And I had to straight up leave the room because I thought the Return the Slab guy was just so creepy. That's hilarious to think about looking back at, this.
Return the slab.
Listen, man, it was scary at the time. And I think that was because Courage was not afraid to include weird animation techniques and off-the-wall ideas for its villains. We got a rotoscoped bald man, this weird depressed CGI blob, and anime gangle. And then it would hit us with life-changing advice for your little 10-year-old brain.
You're beautiful as you are, Courage, with all your imperfections.
Thanks, Bathtub Barracuda. I'm kind of surprised we never talked about the series here on the channel, so wait, we did? On Game Theory? That's actually just very strange. Good episode, though. So I wanted to finally cover it here on Film Theory, and let me tell you, there is no shortage of things to talk about. I mean, if you're familiar with the series and poke around the theorizing parts of the internet, you've probably seen the idea that there's nothing actually all that strange going on. We're just seeing things from the perspective of an anxious dog with an overactive imagination. And while that is a fun theory, I think we can dig deeper here. See, I do believe there's something strange going on here in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I think we see some sort of weird mutant monster creature every single episode. And it comes in the form of a small pink pup triumphing over the Lovecraftian creature of the week. That's right, loyal theorists. We've already proven that a bunch of other cartoon dogs aren't actually dogs, and it's time to add another one to that list. So join me as I don my detective gear and prove once and for all that Courage the Cowardly Dog isn't a dog at all. So to start out here, we should really just, look at Courage. The first thing you'll notice, other than the fact that he's pink, is that the little man's very anthropomorphic. He's very not dog-like in a lot of ways. Like, for example, our little dude's walking around on two legs most of the time. And it always just looks really uncomfortable when he's down on four. He has strangely human-looking teeth that we see every time he opens his mouth. Plus, he can talk.
What's wrong with it?
Most dogs can't do that. I'd say actually no dogs can do that. And on top of that, he's also smart enough to use and engage with a computer.
Computer? How do you get rid of bad eggplants?
Throw them in the garbage, you twit.
Courage was using ChatGPT before ChatGPT was the thing. Maybe that's the real horror. Though if you really want to get good at using a computer, there are way easier methods for doing that. For example, you could just use a really great service, like the sponsor for today's theory, Squarespace. Alright, so picture this. You want to make a website chronicling all of the creepy monsters you've encountered out here in the middle of nowhere, but you don't know where to start. Well, Squarespace is an all-in-one website builder that has everything you need all in one single place. Here, check this out. Have an idea of how you want the website to look? Well, you can stand out from the crowd using one of Squarespace's award-winning templates. Then use their drag and drop editing features to fully customize the look to do exactly what you want, displaying all of the cryptids in all of their glory. Seriously, with their cutting-edge tools, it's gonna be so easy. And then, if your little website grows into a real business, well, Squarespace has got you covered there too. They have built-in features that help you offer your services, get get paid from clients, schedule appointments, and even send out emails. I mean, if you got that newsletter with all the alien sightings out here in the middle of nowhere, you gotta make sure that people are actually gonna get them. And then Squarespace domains also means that you can easily find a name for your website all in one place with an all-inclusive price. You're not gonna be surprised by a bill, and each Squarespace domain has security and privacy tools, meaning that it's protected. Ain't gonna be no men in black here hacking you. So if you want to start building your own website today, go to squarespace.com for your free trial right now. And then when you're ready to launch, you can go to squarespace.com/filmtheory to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's theory, but let's head back into the truth of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, sure, he's not very dog-like, but this is also a 2D animated cartoon. A ton of the show's humor relies on jokes made through its art style, so sometimes it's just funny to see a dog act like a human. And there are a ton of other anthropomorphic animals here in the middle of nowhere. Cats, Lequack, Cajun Fox, Kitty and Bunny, Mad Dog, you get the idea. So we need some more evidence here than just Courage vaguely looking and acting like a human. And thankfully, the show has plenty of it. For example, throughout the series, Courage shapeshifts. Like a lot, and into a lot of different things. Over and over and over, usually when trying to explain what's going on to Muriel and Eustace.
You stupid dog.
And somehow his oblivious humans don't understand this spot-on impression. Tragic, though it is some great comedic work. Now already, I think that's a weird power for Courage to have in this show about strange things. But, well, if you wanted to chalk that up to animation being weird and funny for the sake of being weird and funny, okay, fine. But the evidence that Courage isn't a dog doesn't stop here. See, Courage also has a crazy diet, and he eats things that a dog really should not be eating. For example, during the episode Heads of Beef, Eustace takes Courage to a local diner where he's given a burger. Now, that sort of red meat is mostly fine for dogs to eat, but Courage instinctively goes to put ketchup on the burger like it's second nature. And that would not be good, since ketchup contains garlic and/or onion powder, both of which are toxic to dogs. And in another episode, Muriel mentions that Courage's favorite food is chicken dumplings.
Yes, Courage, the chicken dumplings are just about done. I know they're your favorite.
Yes!
Eustace, dinner's about ready.
Another dish traditionally made with garlic and onions. Plus, Courage drinks a huge glass of milk with it, which can cause indigestion issues with dogs. Seriously, folks, I know they do it in the cartoons all the time. Don't give your cats or dogs milk. It is not good for them. And that's just a couple of examples. Courage eats a ton of human food throughout the series that dogs probably shouldn't be eating. And if I were to list out each and every one, we'd be here all day. But okay, I hear what you're saying. Sure, most of this food would be harmful for a dog, but probably not fatal. So he could eat them and just be having some off-screen tummy aches, and we'd be none the wiser. And, you know, sure, that's true. I mean, I know a ton of lactose intolerant people, and that doesn't stop them from digging into that bowl of mac and cheese. But we do see Courage eat one thing that would be fatal for dogs: chocolate. In fact, he eats a lot of it through the 4 seasons of this show. In the episode Campsite of Horror, Muriel specifically gives him a chocolate cupcake.
Have a cupcake, Courage. It'll keep up your energy.
Why don't I get a cupcake?
Such a good cupcake-loving dog.
By calling him a cupcake-loving dog, Muriel's implying that this isn't a one-time thing. She's given him cupcakes before and knows that he likes them. And then later in the Mother's Day episode, Courage also eats a huge box of chocolates.
Yeah, you know I don't like chocolates. Good. Hold the mirror.
And while Courage does look a bit sick afterwards, it's implied it's because he ate all of this chocolate way too quickly, not because of the chocolate itself. If Courage were a real dog and he ate this much chocolate, he'd be in big trouble. How much chocolate it takes to kill a dog is actually determined by the weight of the chocolate that they eat and the weight of the dog. Sadly, we don't know Courage's exact weight. I guess Cartoon Network didn't realize that people would be making internet theories about the show 20 years after it airs. But we can estimate it thanks to his breed. Courage's breed has actually been a big point of debate for years, but it's common belief in the fandom that he's a beagle. Some even claim that the show's creator has outright stated this, but I couldn't track that quote down. But it does make sense. Courage has dark floppy ears, he's jumpy and scared of everything, he's super loyal and protective of his humans, and he's loud and makes beagly noises. All traits typical of the breed. And plus, in case you just needed extra proof, the Italian Amazon Prime description of the show refers to him as a pink beagle dog, so so he's quote-unquote a beagle. The average weight of a male beagle is somewhere between 20 and 30 pounds. We'll average that out and say that Courage is 25 pounds. The box of chocolates here is comically large, and looking at the largest box of chocolates I could find at a store close to me, I found this Lint Truffles box which weighs in at 14.7 ounces. Given that size, that means that these chocolates have almost 3 times the amount of chocolate that would be dangerous for a dog this big. It's enough that it would call for immediate emergency treatment at the vet. Otherwise, Courage could straight up die. So, what's going on here? How could Courage possibly survive this death by chocolate? Is it because he's just a cartoon dog? Maybe. Or maybe it's because he isn't a dog at all. And if that's the case, well, then what is he? So at first I wondered what the heck Courage could actually even be, and the first option I landed on, and one based on a semi-popular fan theory about Courage, was skinwalkers. So I guess this is kind of like a little mini trash take. If you're unfamiliar, skinwalkers are a popular monster in creepypasta lore online. They're basically creatures that can shape-shift into other animals or even into humans. They can speak, interact with technology, and generally give off an unsettling vibe, just like everything in Courage. All that lines up with the fan theory that we just mentioned, which claimed that Courage was based on a real story. You might have seen this image floating around Tumblr or Reddit suggesting that the middle of nowhere was actually a real place in New Mexico where an elderly couple disappeared after reporting sightings of a skinwalker. The only thing left behind was their dog. But despite this saying fun fact, this picture isn't really fun or a fact at all. Turns out people just go on the internet and lie. Who would have thunk? I tried reverse image searching this photo to see where it came from and couldn't find an exact source. Couldn't even track down the origins of this image of the house. And while other folks online have found a missing persons case in New Mexico that sounds kind of similar, the couple in that case didn't have a dog. But more importantly than that, the creator of the show has never actually confirmed this image to be true. Instead, he's said that the show was inspired by mythology, psychological concepts, and even the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah, nowhere has he mentioned an obscure true crime creepypasta. But on top of that, and perhaps most importantly, when you actually look into what a skinwalker is, well, it starts to look a lot less like Courage. See, the skinwalker you're probably familiar with, the pale, gangly monsters that steal people's bodies and voices, perfect to be an internet boogeyman, that looks nothing like what a quote-unquote real skinwalker is. Skinwalkers actually come from Native American tradition, and that lore runs deep. It also comes from a living, breathing culture that I am not a part of, and I respect that. So while we pride ourselves on our research here, I recommend that you go look into first-hand sources if this piques your interest and you want to learn more. The skinwalker tradition originated in Navajo culture, but it's also part of others like the Apache and the Hopi, just to name a few. Many stories depict them as witches who can possess animals or change their shape to look like an animal, and they gain this power by committing a heinous act, like killing a member of their family. Honestly, that sounds nothing like what we see with Courage. From literally everything we see about this brave pup, he drives himself crazy trying to protect his family, not to harm them. His love for Muriel is the reason he's able to face so many of his greatest fears, directly clashing with that interpretation of skinwalkers. And additionally, as I just said, skinwalkers are typically associated with Navajo tradition, or other tribes in the American West. But the middle of nowhere isn't located anywhere near where those tribes have roots. It's in Kansas, confirmed in the episode Courage the Fly.
Where is it coming down?
Nowhere, Kansas.
Good. No one lives in nowhere.
So sadly, as cool as it might have been, that mini theory is debunked. But if he's not a dog and not a skinwalker, what exactly is Courage the Cowardly Not Dog? Well, since we've confirmed that he's in Kansas, can we look at the cryptids and monsters from that area instead? Well, perhaps. Of course, you got your usual reports of Bigfoots and other local legends, my favorite of which is Sinkhole Sam. He's a giant 15-foot-long snake creature with a non-snake-like grin. I mean, just look at that smile. Who could possibly hate this guy? But despite having the same pearly whites as Courage, he's obviously not Courage because he's a giant snake. Yeah, as it turns out, there's very little in Kansan folklore that lines up here, but there is one type of monster that could fit here. Actually, it fits surprisingly well, both from the folklore of Kansas and the lore of the cartoon. And that, my friends, is aliens. Yeah, okay, I know, hear me out. There have been over 1,200 reported UFOs in Kansas since 1995, and we already know that there are aliens aplenty in Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like, feels like it can't go 2 or 3 episodes without seeing one. I mean, even the pilot was called Chicken from Outer Space, where, you guessed it, there's a chicken from outer space. Then there's Theo the Alien, who was in an episode called Night of the Scarecrow, and there's also like weird looking space dinos. But even more than that, the thing that confirms this for me, well, there's an entire storyline that connects Courage directly to outer space, and it comes from Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Yes, really. If you were unaware, there was an official crossover between these two scaredy dogs released in 2021 called Straight Out of Nowhere, Scooby-Doo Meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. And despite being a big fan of both the Scooby Gang and Courage the Cowardly Dog, I had no idea that this came out. Yeah, they don't advertise these made-for-TV and or streaming movies very well. But if this crossover is making your ears perk up like a Cocker Spaniel, well, you wouldn't be alone, friends. Why? Well, because of a video Matt did here on the channel all the way back in 2020, proving that Scooby was in fact an alien.
Scooby-Doo is an alien, period. End of sentence. That is 100% canonical fact. That isn't me even overreaching in the slightest.
Great video, by the way. I really loved that one. Do recommend you go watch it. And wouldn't you know it, friends, but our answer can be found in this film. The story starts how every other Scooby-Doo episode would normally end. You know, the villain's tied up, the cops are there, and Velma's explaining what's happened. But then, Scooby hears a deafening noise that causes him to run all the way to nowhere. And once he gets there, Courage is hearing the exact same noise.
You hear that weird sound? Did it go like this? Or did it make you dance? Me too.
Courage and Scooby are the only two originally affected by the sound, cementing their connection here. And of course, once the Scooby Gang track down their doggo and get to sleuthing, the sound becomes a lot less mysterious. It's a dark matter meteor buried deep under nowhere. In fact, the meteor is the source of all of the weirdness that's ever happened throughout the entire history of the Courage series. Oh, and it's also the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs in this universe?
It was caused by one of the most deadly meteors in the history of the planet. The one thought to have wiped out the dinosaurs.
That's not where the meteor hit IRL. I'm pretty sure that was in the Gulf of Mexico, but whatever, good enough. The meteor does a lot of weird stuff throughout the episode. It mind controls various people and animals, and as Courage and Scooby dig down to the meteorite, they start shape-shifting and dancing. And strangely, though the villains in this episode had to build machines to harness the power of the meteor, Courage was able to do it with his bare hands. Or pause? And that is weird, my dudes. At the end, it's revealed that Katz and LeQuack teamed up to use the meteor as some sort of get-rich-quick scheme, foiled by this gang of meddling kids. As Katz explains, when the meteor spins, it affects certain creatures differently.
When it spins, it emits a frequency that makes people very open to suggestion. It enabled us to control the giant cicadas to keep you all out of our business.
Yeah, they controlled a giant bug army throughout the episode with it, and got a bunch of rich people to give them their valuables. And they also think that this is why Scooby and Courage were affected by the ringing in their ears. But, well, if the villains here were able to control countless humans and bugs, and they couldn't control Courage or Scooby, well, why? Perhaps it's because they weren't from the Earth. They don't share any Earth biology and weren't affected in the same mind-controlling way. And the fact that Courage and Scooby were affected in the same way by that annoying ringing in their ears and no other dogs were affected and came running to help? Well, my friends, that is an implication that Courage and Scooby are the same. They're from the same species. And since they're not the same as other dogs, and Scooby is canonically an alien, that means that Courage the Cowardly Dog is actually Courage the Cowardly Alien. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on Film Theory.
And now, gang, we'll find out who was really behind the hauntings at YouTube headquarters.
Markiplier?